Welcome back, everybody. Um, it's good to be back. And now we are going to talk about more Python topics. And so today we'll be talking about variable scope. Now, just from that title, what does variable scope mean? Um, we'll find out. Okay, so let's just talk about the different scopes. So we have two scopes. We have local and global. So let's talk about local variables for a second. So when you create a variable inside a function, it is local, which means that it only exists inside the function. So for example, we have a function here. Remember this keyword def. That's what you put before you define a function. So the function name is cat underscore twice. It takes two parameters, and the parameter names are part one and part two. And remember, you can name parameters anything you want. Okay, and so inside of this function, we say we make a variable called cat, and we say it's equal to part one plus part two, and then we print out cat. Okay, and then outside of the function, notice like the indentation, right? So outside of the function, meaning this is in the same indentation as the function definition. So we call the function outside, and we call cat underscore twice. We pass it two parameters, foo and bar, and these are strings. So foo is going to be part one is going to be in place of part one, and bar will be in place of part two. And then we print out cat. So we print out cat. Now, cat exists locally inside of here. So what is that going to do for us? So, okay. So when cat twice terminates, the variable cat is destroyed. So when we call this function, we go to the function definition and then it executes whatever's inside here. And then whatever variable is created inside the function is destroyed. So we can't call it outside of the function. So it says if we try to print it in the main program, we will get an error. So you know what, let's just try that out. I like to always try things out and see what we get. Okay, so let us get into the code. Okay, I'm going into my workspace. Let's see. Mind you, I can just click on VS Code and open it in there, but I just like to um, use the terminal to just keep my skills up. Okay. So let me make a new file called scope.py because that's what we're dealing with. Okay, so let's see. So we have a function called def cat twice. I can do anything, but okay, look at that. So it already knows exactly what I'm looking at. Okay. It's VS Code is pretty intelligent that way. So I called cat twice, and we can pass it. We'll pass it these strings, Babson in college, and then we're gonna print the variable cat. And now what do we get? Print. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So right away, it's already telling us cat is not defined because of the scope. Okay, so let's run it and see what we get. So if you look here, we print out Babson College because we add these two strings together, and then we print it inside this function we call the print function. Oops. Okay. So that's why we get this Babson College. but then we get an error, and here's the trace back. So here it says line 6, here, line 6, print, and then it highlights this cat name. It says cat is not defined, right? So cat is not defined because the variable only exists in this scope, and once we've executed the function, we cannot access the variable that exists inside there. But let's see if maybe we can fix this by defining cat outside outside the function. Okay, so right now it's already cooperating with us. Yeah. So everything worked fine, it looks like, because we've defined the scope on the outside now. But let's see, there's a problem here. Let's see what's going on here. I gotta put this in double quotes because I'm using single quotes in the string. Okay, here we go. Let's print. So what we expect to see, like, let's see if you can pick up what's going on here, and we can understand the behavior of Python. So here we declare the variable cat, and we give it this value of this string, right? Now we've defined a function with 2 parameters, and we're using the cat variable again, and we're saying it is equal to this plus this, right? And then we print it. Then we call the function, okay? And then we print out the value of the variable cat. So let's see. Which print? Okay, we got to see which print. So that this is what it's telling us, is that the value of cat when we print here is this, but the value of cat inside here is different. So that's a very good point to illustrate, is that we got to understand what are the expectations if we do something like this. And obviously you do not want to make this is not an error because the program is working, but it's what we call a logical error, in that it logically doesn't lead us to the outcome that we want, right? And so these are errors that are very hard to find. Okay, the more you understand how the language works, the easier it is to find these errors. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, I went too fast there. Okay, so consider the following example. So here, same thing, but here with cat, we I think they made a typo. There's a typo here. So this should just be print, right? This should just be print. So yeah, we add in part 3 here, but part 3 exists outside of the function scope. So part 3 equals hello. So when we run cat twice, what we expect is, so should we expect to see so what and then hello all put together? So let's see what it says. So the variable part 3 is created outside the function, so it belongs to the special frame called __main__. Variables in this frame are sometimes called global because they can be accessed from any function. Unlike local variables, which disappear when their function ends, global variables persist from one function call to the next. So we can just try it out. plus part 3. So it's not defined. So and then let's say part 3 equals hello. And let's see what we get. There we go. We get Babson College hello. Because so what happens is that it gets these two values from what we pass into the function, right? These two parameters. Then it says then we have part 3. Well, then it's going to look and say, okay, where is it defined? It's not in the parameter list. It's not inside the function. Does it exist globally? And yes, it does, right here. And so then it can resolve that. Let me clear this. Okay. Okay. But again, this is not good practice. Although it works, it is not good practice. So difference between global and local variables. In the example below, the function can access both the global and the local variable. However, trying to access the local variable outside the function produces an error. So here we have a function called ex1, takes no parameters. It creates a local variable called local var, and it gives it a value. Then we print out both local and global variables. Outside of the function, so now, and that's the end of the function. Outside of the function, we have a global variable. Okay, we call the function ex1, so that's what we do here. We want to print out the value of the global variable, and we want to print out the local variable. Well, this won't work because the like we said before, the local variable only exists in this scope. So once we're out of the scope of the function here, local variable no longer is defined. It doesn't exist. It's been destroyed. So we'd have to redefine it after this line. Okay, so this executes the code inside the function, right? Right. This executes the code inside the function and prints both the global and local variable. This line prints the global variable, and then this line produces an error because the local variable is not available outside the function. So scope is the part of the code where a variable name can be accessed. In Python, the scope of a local variable is the body of the function that defines the local variable. The body of the function that defines the local variable. So this is the body of this function. And the function and the variable is defined inside here. Okay. Sorry. And the scope of a global variable is the main program, including all functions defined in the program. So the scope of a global variable is the main program, including all functions defined in the program. So, for instance, so a global scope would be if we had this function, if we had another function, say, def something, right? These are global. So the function is global, and this variable is global. This function is global. You can also, I believe you can also define another function inside a function. So I can define another function and that works as well. But that function, I cannot call it. Let's see. So can I call another function like this? It says another function is not defined because it's only defined within the scope of this function, not globally. If I do this, look, voila, it's now defined because it's in the global scope, right? So the scope, everything depends on the indentation. You gotta You got to pay attention to the indentation. Anything that's indented underneath something belongs belongs to that. So anything underneath this def cat twice belongs to that and belongs to that scope. Anything in the same line belongs to the same scope. The same scope. In this case, the global scope. Okay. So here's some more examples. An example that demonstrates more scope ideas. So we have a function called func y, and we create a variable in. So we pass in a parameter called y. We create a variable called z. We assign it the value of x plus y. So y is passed into the function, z is created inside the function, and x is global. And then we return the addition here. So we say x is equal to 99 result. So we store the result of whatever the function does inside this variable called result. We pass in 100. So we'll say that, so we're going to say that, so what's going to happen is z is going to equal 99 plus 100, and which is 199, right? So here is illustrating what's going on. So z is assigned the value of the sum of the global variable x and the local variable y. Z gets assigned a value of 199 and is returned to the main program. The value of the result is printed, the value of x is printed, the value of y is the value of y. The value of y, printing y produces an error and printing z produces an error. Printing y produces an error because y only exists in the as a function in the function scope, as well as z. So do not code like this. Do not use variables from outside the function. Instead, pass in their values like we did with y. Try, excuse me, try to use different variable names in the main part of your program than what you are using inside your functions. Keeping the variable names different means that you will never run into issues. And so here are some questions, right? I'm not going to go through these, but I'll so you pause here, try and answer the questions, all right, and then unpause, and then you'll see the next slide with the answers on it. Okay, so pause here, try to answer the questions, and then unpause, and then see the answers. And so here's answer one. Here's the answer for the first one. Here's the answer for the second one, and here's the answer for the third one. I'm not going to go into these, go through these. You can use this as an opportunity to test your knowledge and test what you know. And then if you have questions, you can always ask me. Okay, so what about this code? So we've defined a method called a function called bad square, and it takes a parameter x. And so we say y, we create a variable y, it equals x. And remember, doing the star star is actually, instead of multiplication, it does x raised to the power, right? And then we return y. So what are the local variables? You got to ask yourself this question. So pause here, answer these questions. What are the local variables? What are the global variables? Does this program work? Is it the way we should write it? Okay, so I'm assuming you've paused and you've tried to answer these questions. So let's answer these questions now. What are the local variables? The local variables would be x, y. The global variables are power and result. Does this program work? I think it does. But, even me, I don't know. But how can we know? We can always write the program and test it. So does the program work? I can't verify that it works. I may think that it works, but you also need to verify these things. And is it the way we should write it? Well, we've already decided that we shouldn't utilize global variables inside of functions. Rather, we should pass in the values to functions that we want to use, right? So here we get, yes, x and y are local, power and results are global. The program works, yes. Is it the way we should write it? No. And so an example of a good way to write it. So this is the function called good square. It takes two parameters, an x and a variable power. So these are both local. So we do stuff, we raise x to the power and we return y. And then here we are calling the function. So we're just saying 10 to the power of 2, and we print out the result. Okay, so that's it on variable scope. It's a pretty short topic that we covered here, but very important. So if you find that you're writing a program, you're writing an assignment, you're doing some project on your own, and everything looks good, you have no syntax errors or anything, your editor's not giving you errors and telling you, it's not no squiggly lines underneath anything, so everything looks good, you know, but it's not giving you the right answers. Perhaps your scope is the problem, and oftentimes scope does become a problem when you have certain statements in the wrong areas in the wrong scope. It can cause issues. Okay, so that's it on variable scope. Very important topic, um, and will be on the test. So I suggest you guys, you know, show up on Friday and have questions for me. Some of you have not been showing up, and that's your choice. But again, for those of you who showed up, um, that's good. You're doing what you're supposed to do, and we will continue to forge ahead in the course, regardless of what others are doing or not doing. Okay, so good luck with your studies, and we'll see you in the next video.